So why are the media pushing this new wave of celebrity voyeurism? Joining us now, Mark Jerkowitz, Associate Director of the Project for Excellence in Journalism. In Los Angeles, Jill Ishkanian, Editor-in-Chief of CelebrityBabylon.com. And Ashlyn Gorse, Editor-at-Large of Life and Style Weekly Magazine. Jill Ishkanian, what on earth justifies television running this Hasselhoff video again and again?
Well, I think at this point, television is competing against the internet, and good luck. You know, I mean, this video was viewed on the internet, you know, hours and hours before it ever aired on television. So TV, you know, people are amping it up and going, okay, we've got to go head to head with these guys on the internet. And so, you know, that's what that is. And everyone just sort of dissected it and got their ratings from it and then moves on to the next thing.
Ashlyn Gorse, David Hasselhoff hasn't even been a big star since Baywatch. Oh, excuse me, he was in the movie SpongeBob SquarePants. So isn't this pure voyeurism, and aren't the media feeding this as celebrity voyeurism?
Well, I would say I don't think that this was necessarily a plea by David Hasselhoff to try to get publicity, which does happen a lot of times with celebrities. They kind of fall out of the limelight and they come out with a sex tape or some sort of scandal to put their name back in the papers. But this actually kind of went the opposite way. It was bad press for David, and I don't think that anybody in the family really wanted it out there. He didn't leak it himself, and you know, just the fact that we keep on seeing it over and over and over again, I think everybody's gotten tired of it, and they're ready for the next story.
My years of experience as a media analyst convinced me that this was indeed bad press for David Hasselhoff. You know,
Yes.
Mark Jerkowitz, once there were supermarket tabloids and glossy magazines that trafficked in this sort of thing. Now it's CNN and the other cable channels and the morning shows. What happened?
Well, that's the key. And first of all, those other places that used to traffic in it used to have brown envelopes on top of them, and you used to have to, you know, go and kind of be embarrassed to pick them up. The big difference here is dividing between the tabloid media and the mainstream media in these kinds of stories. There's a whole, you know, genre of entertainment, infotainment, celebrity, tabloid style, you know, television programming and internet. TMZ.com, a good example, that traffic in this stuff, and that's their bread and butter, and if they want to do it, they can do it. Let's call it voyeurism. That's what it is. For the mainstream media, I think there ought to be general standards of newsworthiness, and they basically are how important is what happened, and how important is the person it happened to, and I think David Hasselhoff, although Baywatch got exported to 160 countries, is exactly the kind of C-list celebrity that we really have to raise questions about.
Well, you know, talk about how this stuff gets out. Jill Ishkanian, Hasselhoff's ex-wife said that she didn't leak the tape. Alec Baldwin's ex-wife, Kim Basinger, said that she didn't leak the voicemail. I am rather skeptical. I mean, very few people have access to this sort of thing, and it just seems like a family dispute.
No, exactly. And in the old days when Pam Anderson said, oh, I didn't leak my sex tape, some construction workers stole it, you know, we believed her and that kind of thing. In this instance, we've got two ex-wives, both in bitter sort of divorce battles, and Pamela Box is not over, and in Kim Basinger's case, she's deciding custody issues of her daughter. And in your intro, you said that you know, Kim and Alec's daughter is a teenager. She's only 11 years old. And so you really have to think about a parent that would want this sort of information out there, a call between a father and an 11-year-old child. I think it's, you know, pretty disgusting.
And that is exactly the point. You know, if ex-husbands and ex-wives want to fight it out in the media, fine. There are kids involved, Ashlyn Gorse.
Right.
And why do the media therefore why don't they just say no when this clearly sort of drags these young people into these awful family disputes?
It's so true. When there are children involved, I think that the ethics need to be stepped up a little bit. But it's just the fact that there's so many cable news outlets out there that need news 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, that they need some things to fill time. And I think that's one of the reasons why a lot of these stories are getting into the mainstream news media, is just because, well, you know, what else are you going to fill at certain times in the night when nobody's watching? Or, oh, you need another 2-minute segment. Well, just use the David Hasselhoff. It's really easy to talk about, as we all know. So I just think that, you know, when there are children involved, the ethics need to be stepped up a little bit more.
Is there a privacy issue here, Mark Jerkowitz? I mean, when Michael Richards starts throwing around the N-word at a public comedy club,
sure,
that's fine. It's in public. Here we have basically two actors having fights with their daughters in the middle of these divorce and custody battles.
Well, unfortunately, the privacy, to the extent that mainstream media outlets or media outlets worry about the privacy issue, kind of gets resolved because it gets on the websites or it gets on YouTube, and then people can take the easy answer, which is, oh, it's already out there. But that's an abrogation of news judgment, which is really what we ought to be using. And frankly, if you look at these kinds of cases, David Hasselhoff, pretty hard to make case was anything other than voyeurism. Now, Mel Gibson being arrested and making anti-Jewish remarks, Semitic remarks, is part of, A, who he is and a bigger story. Michael Richards you know, having a rant, a racist rant on stage, there's legitimate news value to it, but they're not separating the wheat from the chaff.
All right, well, here's my take. I think this Hasselhoff video was awful, and that we just went too far playing it over and over again. It just turns your stomach. I love Larry King, but he spent too much time on this, and I don't know how we can ask people to respect our profession if we don't respect ourselves. Now, another celebrity, bold-faced name that we can't seem to get away with, it was on every anchor's lips seemingly this week. Well, let's take a look.
What are they saying about Paris?
Paris Hilton. Paris Hilton. Paris.
Paris Hilton. Paris Hilton.
Jill Ishkanian, what accounts for the media's bottomless fascination with Paris Hilton and her antics? Are journalists enjoying this?
I mean, I do think it's pretty bad that journalists, you know, Paris Hilton is actually part of our world. We profit off of her. You know, she could have been an heiress that was sort of a trust fund dummy, content to, you know, live off. She's a working person. She has a clothing line coming out at Kitson. She's, you know, has a perfume line that's done very well. She's part of our world, and the fact that they've
why do you think she's part of our world? She's only part of our world because the media keep the spotlight on her. She's not part of my world.
She's not part of your world. She's part of our celebrity world, and your report. Obviously, if you have a segment on celebrities, she's infiltrated your world. And why? Because the public is fascinated with her. And she's out, she's, you know, as far as the media goes, she's very nice to the media. She shows up at their book signings, you know, the different editors of magazines.
All right,
and I do feel like they've turned on her in this situation.
So she keeps violating probation, Mark Jerkowitz,
Yes.
and she gets a 45-day jail term. Do you care?
Not particularly. I don't think we're going to worry about her in getting treated too badly in jail.
All right. Ashlyn Gorse, you know, there seems to be a whole new coverage category here. Bad girls. It's not just Paris. It's Lindsay Lohan and Britney Spears. What explains this? They really attract a lot of eyeballs?
You know, they do, but I think that you know, the general public likes to see people going through bad situations. They like to see the people they put up on a pedestal kind of going through some rough times and having issues, because we like to build people up, to knock them down, to build them up again. And somebody like Paris, who's, you know, famous for being infamous, this is only, all of this coverage and this jail time is only helping her celebrity, which is probably the opposite of what most people in mainstream want to hear. But because of this, Paris is always on our lips. We're going to be following her through jail, through the whole process. I'm sure she's going to get a big deal when she comes out of jail to talk about it.
I can only imagine.
I know, and it's just, it's perpetrating itself.
Let's not be naive. These are three very attractive young women who don't mind sort of exhibiting themselves in public either, which is an issue.
I think that,
and they love the attention.
But we love to give it to them, and that is the question. All right, Ashlyn Gorse, Jill Ishkanian, Mark Jerkowitz, thanks very much for joining us this morning.